Welcome to MGTOW Theatre. With your host, Ayam Sirias. Today's topic. A reading titled Switching from Indifference to Idealism by Jessie Nagy.
Switching from Indifference to Idealism by Jessie Nagy. When memory formation is impaired, it is often due to stress. Cortisol is released from the adrenal cortex into the bloodstream during highly stressful conditions. It travels to the brain that binds to receptors in the hippocampus, disrupting hippocampal activity, weakening ability of the temporal lobe memory system for explicit memories to form. Continuous stress causes hippocampal cells to start to degenerate. These changes account partly for memory disturbances typically exhibited by stress-related conditions, depression and severe PTSD. Stress hormones also have a negative effect on the prefrontal cortex and could also contribute as to why bad decisions are made during stress. Conditions that set a weakness of explicit memory formation and to regulate fear by reason and thinking can also enhance fear reactions and ability to implicitly store information about severity or stressful situations. The good part about that is that even when the ability to form explicit memory is functioning inadequately, we can store useful information about threats. The bad part is that if we don't know what it is we are learning about, those stimuli could trigger fear responses later that will be difficult to understand and control. Professor Sapolsky has noted that wild animals don't have to deal with 30-year-long sprinting from predators. However, we humans have to deal with 30-year mortgages. The body system involving the control of stress hormone release is called the HPA axis, or the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. This didn't evolve for the secretion of cortisol for the purpose of depression, but for the help of dealing with short-term threats, bleeding scratches, etc., after which homeostasis is restored. Cortisol is amplified in depressed patients. They have a smaller hippocampus and have memory problems. Cell shrinkage and cell death mainly happen on one region of hippocampus called CA3. Cell death occurs much less on the dentate gyrus, but stress is also more frequent there. Of adult organisms, this is one of the few zones that is known to undergo neurogenesis, production of new neurons. Neurogenesis increases when animals learn the new, but decreases when they are stressed. The hippocampus is not the only zone of the brain that is altered with depression. Change also occur in the amygdala, and imaging reports show changes of functional activity and size of the prefrontal regions. This zone of the brain has abundant receptors for adrenal steroid hormones and, like the hippocampus, is implicated in the regulation of HPA axis function. Excessive cortisol also attacks the prefrontal cortex during depression, including altered decision-making. Think mistakes, sometimes made by the quote-unquote patriarchy, distractibility, poor short-term memory, and executive functioning. Depression is no longer believed to be a monoamine imbalance. It is analyzed to involve altered circuits that lock one into a state of psychological and neural withdrawal, of which reduction to engage and learn about the world is tainted. Some might argue that sensations and emotions are different. Well, that's not really the point. One thing is for certain. It's that male experience is not regarded anyway. Another subset of the similar phenomena of the popular culture happens within MRA sectors. The female MRA loves your indifference. Let's not listen to emotional arguments. Oh, you can't express yourself with such metaphors. There are reasons for anger, etc. Darwin was much too busy back then to make monumental records of the fact that modernity has reinforced females' pleasure reward system more than enough. I'll use an analogy. If you have established planning with the female, you take her to a comedy club, and the comic performer makes everyone in the building laugh a lot. She will actually start to become more interested in the comic performer, even though you've already made plans with her and implied winning her affection. This will not stop her from welcoming an offer from the comic performer if he actually acted upon it. So you want to continue playing the game that is set by gynocentrism's old decadent past? You call it winning to build the best nest, as Darwin would state, which has largely already been built sufficiently to risks and nagging superficiality and the like. And then, from the popular male enablers, it's feelings are for fags, just go to the bar. Then from within philosophical spaces, it's just blame it on the leftists, the metrosexuals, whatever. Taking risks is just immature. That's not my ideal of winning. My ideal is more similar to Richard Dawkins, the selfish gene, to alter the game, creating newer and better rules with better gains, by becoming philosophically successful, then spreading memes. Forget the Avery's charged and relentless feminine success. If you have access to philosophy, etc., you already have enough supply for her. What comes next from that is much more idealism. Evolutionary history was harsh. It was bad, and of course it made men react quickly with making some bad choices. Can we get past that now and switch to futurism via neuroscience? I think that the female MRAs would be much more defending of evolutionary psychology, because it gives them an excuse for gynocentrism, as they would emphasize, you see, we had to cater to females this way because of what happened hundreds of thousands of years ago. I prefer the neuroscience much more to the evolutionary studies, although the evolutionary studies are still obviously valid, and the reason I think of the evolutionary studies as lesser than the neuroscience is because it creates a state of thinking in past terms. It's sometimes even used to basically excuse bad actions. It causes much more indifference. With the neuroscience, the future can be forged because the neuroscience actually offers much better understanding of how to treat causes of problems, because the neuroscience addresses the core nature even better.
Oh,